think of this as more of like a podcast, like if you're listening to Spotify or Apple. But I wanted to elaborate more on how I became 100% debt free, and so can you, quicker than you think. Okay, so of course it depends on the level of debt that you have, all that. Disclaimer, I am not a financial advisor. I am just a regular woman on the planet. Well, I'm not regular, but I'm an everyday human woman that has just been trying to figure it out when it comes to the finances, and not growing old with a ton of debt, right? And the reason, let me just give you a quick little background story on why this became such a big obsession in a good way for me. So my grandfather and my grandmother both passed away. My grandmother passed away from dementia. My grandfather passed away from cancer. They both did not have life insurance. I believe my grandfather did have life insurance, but his cancer got really bad and he just, stopped being able to pay attention to paying some of his bills. And, it lapsed. And then my grandma, didn't have any life insurance. Like, unfortunately, from that era, there was a negative connotation in, growing up, being from the projects, and it was just a negative connotation around life insurance and what it really was, and was it a waste of money, and all of that. And I really saw the ripple effect, because the thing is, me and the rest of my family love my grandfather just so deeply and just so unconditionally. So we would have all emptied out our bank accounts for whatever we needed to pay for them. That wasn't the issue. It was just the fact that their life's work, like all these years of hard work and dedication that they put in, thankfully my grandmother wasn't really in any debt when she passed, so that was amazing, and neither was my grandfather. But what really hit me, because my grandfather passed when I was 15 and my grandmother passed away just a couple of years ago, so I was in very, two different stages. Seeing my grandmother pass with no life insurance, it really affected our family with being able to grieve correctly. Okay, so now I'm like, oh, now I get why life insurance is such a big deal, because it's not about money, but when you have to deal with logistics and, the funeral expenses, and, if there were, tying up loose affairs and things like that, debt, things like that. Thankfully, like I said, my grandmother really didn't have much debt, but that's why, like, we as a family paid for the funeral, and just that alone actually would have been fine. Like, if my grandmother had just enough life insurance just to be able to pay for the funeral, we wouldn't have had to deal with who's going to pay for this, who's going to pay for that section, who's going to, like, we shouldn't even had to deal with that. We should have just been dealing with just being able to grieve, okay, here's all the affairs, it's ready to go. So again, it's just a generational lack of education. Again, my grandmother being from the projects and things like that. I'll read your question as soon as I slow down. So bottom line, I'll get into more of the detail later, but I wanted to just give you guys a quick little background of why I made it like a personal mission to become debt free, have life insurances, have retirements, like all those affairs, all those things. Again, there was a lot of survival mode, coming from my family, my Black side, coming from the South, and just trying to survive. You're not thinking about like IRAs and 401ks and investing accounts and investing in stocks and bonds and ETFs and doing Bitcoin. I mean, you're just trying to literally put food on the table for that night, So I'm like, okay, my grandfather and my grandmother taught me so much just by me watching them, like outside of like the stuff that they physically told me, you know, with our conversations, like just the way that they moved, the way that they lived. And I'm like, I want to continue on and build upon the legacy by making it even better, right? So not just saying, okay, well, you know, our family came from the South and then made it to Cali and lived in the projects, and, you know, we struggled and all that. Like, they did that part. So now it's my turn to take the baton. You know, me and my mom have the same mindset, to take the baton and then grow it exponentially, right? So that's why I'm like really passionate about like learning about debt and getting out of debt, and learning, you know, about how to maximize spending money. And so let me tell you what I did to get out of debt, be out of debt in my 30s, 100% out of debt. And it was simpler than you would think, because I was definitely spending a lot of money traveling and doing all that in my later 20s and early 30s. But I was still able to be debt free. So this is what I did. I downloaded this book called, gosh dang it, I wish I was parked, because I would, what is it called? I believe it's called I Will Teach You to Become Rich. I'll put it down in the description. I'll put a link to the book, but I believe it's I Will Teach You to Become Rich, I believe is the title. It'll be titled, This is the Book I Used. So down below in the description as soon as I'm done. So I downloaded that. The biggest takeaway that I got from that book was all the debt that you have, there's a couple different strategies that you can do. You can obviously get a loan and then pay off all your credit card bills, right? And then basically consolidate your bills to where you have like a, you know, $500 payment like once a month, but all your debts like paid off, right? So you could do that. That's one route, and one method that someone could take is just to consolidate. I mean, there's different methods of consolidating, but you can consolidate your bills. Basically taking a loan out to pay bills, but it doesn't really get you out of debt. It just kind of transfers the debt, and it might be in your favor a little bit. Instead of having like seven different bills that you have to pay, you can just pay one, because all your other debts were paid off by this big lump sum of a loan. So that's one way. Another takeaway from the book that I actually implemented, you could do this either way, okay? I'll show you the way that I did it, but you can do this both ways. So you can take your bill that's your lowest bill and make a priority to pay that one first. So let's just say, for example, you had a credit card bill that was $300. Then you had another credit card bill that was like $2,000. Then you had another like loan that was $5,000. And then you have like maybe your car, you have to pay off the rest of your car. That's like, you still have like $10,000 left on your car, right? So sometimes you can look at all that and like it's a collection of almost $15,000, right? So you can look at that and be really overwhelmed. But in order to just get rid of the feeling of being overwhelmed, you just chip away at one bill. So you pay the minimum payment on everything else. So call every single creditor, call every single like loan, you know, wherever you got your loan from. Maybe, you know, call the car dealership and like see if you can work out a deal to just pay the very minimum. Okay, so even if it's only $17, $50 on everything else, and then you do big chunks on your smallest bill. So for example, if you have a $200, $300, $400 credit card, you would put most of your money on paying that down, okay? So let's just say usually you pay only the minimum payment, which is like $17 or $16 or $21 or something like that. You're just like, I'm not even paying attention to any other bills but this one, any of my other debt except this one debt, which is the smallest one. Okay, you can also do that flipped. You can take your biggest chunk, so you can not pay attention to the rest, and take your biggest bill and just have that be the biggest fish to fry or whatever. The reason why I did it was small to biggest was because I felt like every time I paid down a credit card or I paid down a loan, I felt this burst of confidence in myself. I think if I had done it where I was trying to pay the biggest thing first, which was my car note, my car that I had, you know, a balance left on. I think if I only paid attention to that and then kept seeing the other debts there, I think it would have felt longer to me. It would have felt like, wow, this is going to be so much more to accomplish. Because a lot of times, what it is it's the psychology, okay? It's a psychology of gaining confidence that you can do this. So I felt like paying the smallest one first and attacking that and not paying attention to anything else on my credit report really helped me psychologically. I was like, okay, I can do this. So I paid off my smallest one first, right? I would cut back on happy hours. I would cut back on going to dinners. I would, you know, if it was somebody's birthday, I would, especially like family and stuff like that, they understand when you're trying to like get on your feet. I would cut back on like buying bigger gifts. Maybe if it was a cheaper gift or whatever, or maybe just saying, hey, look, I got you next year. I got you Christmas or whatever. So paid off that one. But I think my smallest bill, my smallest credit card bill was like a $300 credit card that I just like was being silly in my 20s, just opened it because I was like, oh, this is cool. Free money. And not like thinking, okay, great. All this stuff is piling up on me in my 30s. So I paid that off. So once I did that, it felt good to see a zero. Okay. Also did, that was a part of the book, is I called every single one and I worked out a deal with them. So if it was a bill that I had for like, you know, 5, 6, 7 years, I just worked out a deal, whether it was like, okay, can we get it, you know, if it was a $5,000 credit card, can we do a deal where I pay 3 lump sums of, you know, $1,200 and we cut what I owe down to $4,200. You know, like sometimes like you'll get credit card, especially if you let something go to collections, which I have before, just being literally ridiculous in my 20s. Like no one ever sat me down and said, this is how credit works. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to figure this out and I'm going to teach the rest of the younger kids in my family. If like, that's like my thing. I want everyone to be financially, like on the basics, financially savvy with like credit, having an investing account, making sure to have life insurance, all that stuff. So, okay, I called each creditor and I basically, because there's more power that we have than we think we have. We just have to actually muster up the courage to call. So I called all of them, saw what could be done. And a lot of times, especially if something's about to fall off, like one of my accounts was about to fall off in like 7 years. And so I basically took advantage of the fact that it was going to fall off. And I was like, well, no, I have the money now. I want to like do this with integrity. So I could have just let it fall off and never paid it. I was like, no, I actually used the credit card. You know what I mean? So I'm going to, at one, because like when I was taking care of my grandma, you guys, I was just like taking out credit cards. I was in survival mode, just taking care of my grandma. So I called each creditor, made a deal with all of them. Okay. So then I went to the next big one. So I think the next big one for me was like $1,000. So, and I think I had got that down because I think it was like a $200 credit card. And then I like got them to like do a deal with me where we were going to do like a $1,200 whatever. So then I paid chunks of like $300. Now again, I'm not worried about the other bills. You know, if things are hitting the credit report, if, you know, you're getting a phone call from a debt collector, I wasn't thinking about none of that. I was just laser focused on my very next kahuna or whatever, like my very next thing that I was going to attack. So that was like about, you know, like I just said, like about $1,000, $1,200, something like that. I paid that a long time ago. That's why I can't really recall the exact number, but it was around like $1,000, $1,200, something like that. So boom, pay that off. Okay. So again, I'm cutting back on things. I'm chunking things off. If there's like a, you know, tax return that I got, I'm using that toward it. You know, I would ask for money for my birthday and use some of that money to pay it down. Like I just was like, okay, I only have one thing to attack. Even though there's 7 other things, I'm just going to focus on this one thing. I already did it once with the small payment with the $300 card, but now I'm going to do it with the next biggest card and get that done. Okay. So I did that with the rest of my debt. Okay. So I just kept attacking I put them all in order from smallest amount to biggest amount and did that. Amongst that, during that time, you're like, okay, well, how do I do that when I'm only living on the same paycheck to paycheck? That's why I'm going to want you, I'm going to really encourage you to invest. I became an investor in the stock market 4 years ago when I was super terrified, had no idea about the stock market, was a hot mess, barely understood what a stock was, barely understood what a share was. I like didn't know what a 401k, I had a 401k and didn't understand. I would always see like the statements, I'd be like, I just don't get it, whatever, that's cool that I have a 401k, I don't understand it. Like, it was bad. I was like, do you like literally have to go inside of a company and like say, hi, I would like to invest? Like, I didn't even know what a broker was. Like, I was really like, again, no one taught me when I was younger, and then when I was an adult, I didn't take the time to like really dig into it. So once the world shut down in 2020, I was like, I have to figure this out. I can't be moving, understanding how to stock market. Like, I just can't do that. That's ridiculous. People, 14-year-olds, I think you can have your own investing account at 14. Don't mark my words on that, but I believe you can be a minor and have your own investing account. I mean, kids are making thousands of dollars on the stock market, and I can't figure out what a stock is. I was like, no. So I downloaded. So I talked to I thankfully had a cousin in the financial industry. He sat me down. He's like, we're just going to teach you how to do it. Read a basic chart. So that's how it started. I talk about this more in my last video. It's titled Don't Get Left Behind, How I Became Debt-Free Quickly. So you're going to want to check out that video. I go more into detail about what my cousin did. But I downloaded Charles Schwab. I downloaded Robinhood. And with Robinhood, it was really cool because automatically, right when I downloaded it, I got, I believe, 2 stocks, like 1 or 2 stocks for just for downloading the app, which I thought was really, really cool. I think you have to download and transfer $100. And then now I have 4 different ones. Another one that I have is Moo. Okay, I have Moo and then M1 Finance. So Moo is super dope because I opened up that one, and when you transfer $1,000 in there, 20 free stocks just for transferring 100. So even if you didn't want to learn how to have stocks, you could just open up the account, put $1,000 and you get 20 free stocks. I believe with $100 you get 5 free stocks. So if anyone's interested in that, click the link down below. But this is my thing. Automatically, because I had some of my siblings and a couple other family members download Robinhood. I was like, look, you could transfer some money in there, get the stock, let it build over 6 months, and then sell it out. Just press sell and then sell it out. And then now you just came up, you don't even have to do anything. You just let it sit there, right? And the stocks are pretty dope. So anyway, so I got investing accounts. I literally taught myself how to, well, I had my cousin, he sat me down for a couple hours and like gave me a very basic understanding and broke it down in a way that I could understand it, like kind of like investing for dummies level. And then with Robinhood and with Charles Schwab, Robinhood was so easy and fun to use. It felt very like simple. It's like it's trendy with how it looks. You only need to do a couple. There's only like a couple buttons you have to push until you buy a stock. Like, it's just very, the interface, I guess you could say, is just very user friendly. Charles Schwab is a little bit more advanced looking, but because I was teaching myself on Robinhood, I then was like able to kind of transfer some of that knowledge over to Charles Schwab, because there is benefits to having Charles Schwab too. I really like the customer service with Charles Schwab. Like, every time I talk to them, they're super professional, they're super nice, they're ready to like help you. Any question I had, I'm like, I don't understand this. What's a margin? How do I use the margin? How do I do this? How do I transfer this? Like, and they're just ready and willing to help. So I do like that. The customer service is excellent with Charles Schwab. But with Robinhood, I felt like if I didn't have Robinhood to start, I just would have been extra confused. I liked how it was just like, okay, a buy and a sell. So that's what I did. So with my already normal caregiving check that I was getting, which was you can imagine it was not much. Minimum wage in California, like, it just wasn't much. And so I was, I had several other projects that when you're in LA, you can be a part of like 5 different projects, like 5 different industries at one time. So I worked at this other in this other industry where you just basically work at events all over LA. So I would take that money and then I would put it in my investing account along with like little bits of my caregiving paycheck as well. And then other money that I would get here and there, you know, again, a birthday, whatever. So I was starting to make gains, right? So not only did I already psychologically get the confidence to pay down the debt because I paid off that first one and then I paid off that second one, how I was able to get the rest of everything paid off super quick was because I started investing. Okay? So I started investing in the stock market, and it's built to always grow. Yes, the stock market's going to get hit here and there. Yes, did it get hit during 2020? Yes, is it going to be hit during an election year? But the way that the stock market works, it is always going to be going up in the long run. Okay? Some things you can get, like Tesla, I got in on that early. When all these stocks got hit during 2020, like all the airline stocks, I got into a bunch of airline stocks. So when they went, I think I got in like at $16, $17. So when they went back up to $40, $50, $60, $70, $80, boom. You know what I mean? I put in $200, but then all those stocks go from $17 to $80. You know what I'm saying? I turned $200 into $1,000. I didn't do anything. All I did was press a couple buttons and trusted that, you know, I just kind of had to take a little bit of a risk to just see how this worked. And yes, I definitely did lose sometimes, but you learn every single time. And so I think the combination of having this mindset of, okay, I already have this story on, I don't want to continue the generational curse in that way of not being financially literate. Okay, you know, that's from my Black, you know, African American side. My Indian side's a whole nother ball game. But I definitely do think that, seeing the way that my dad moved, I'm like, no. Like, I got to figure this out, because he definitely is financially savvy. Being, you know, he's just a business-minded man. He's from northern India. He's Punjabi, and they just move differently. So I do think that was a blessing from that exposure. So I was like, okay, I got to marry this. So my backstory, this is personal. Like, this is a personal thing. I am not continuing the next generation with barely making it, or just like we were able to survive. Like, I don't want to do that. I want there to be assets and things that are growing exponentially every year, and I'm able to benefit from it while I'm alive and leave stuff, you know, for my future children. Okay. So that's how I'm thinking. So number one, it was personal. Number two, I saw that I could do it when I was super intimidated, but I read that book, I Will Teach You to Be Rich. I believe that's what it's called. I'll link it down below. I read the strategies. I picked the strategies that I felt like I could do. Then I invested in the stock market to make everything quicker. And what I did was I cut back. It became fun to kind of cut back, right? Because I was like, oh, like, instead of going to happy hour with all the coworkers and spending $80 3 times a week, let me just go once, you know what I mean? Or let me just skip this week, right? And so, like, you would be surprised, just like cutting back here and there and being able to collect $20 here, $50 here, $17 here, all that adds up. And boom, I looked up this year and I was like, oh my gosh, I am debt free. And it was just such a good feeling, because 8 years ago, I was so overwhelmed with, like, dang, you know, I just like really was like ridiculous in my 20s. Like, what the hell, you know what I mean? And thinking like, oh, it's fine, and not understanding what I was really doing, just like racking up stuff. And again, you know, live in the moment, whatever. And I paid it off. Like, in my mind then, I was like, oh, I'm going to pay that off. I'm not worried about it. And I did. But during the journey, when I saw the debt piling and piling, I was like, this doesn't feel good. Like, I know that I was like, yeah, live in the moment. Like, woo! Like, it was amazing in the moment, and I have amazing memories and photos to remember, and you know, had some epic times and whatever. But I'm like, I can still go on vacation and I can still spend money on things that I want, but there has to be a different way. I can't like keep living paycheck to paycheck, or just having a little tiny savings account that I keep dipping into. You know, I just was like, this is just off. Like, how are other people figuring this out? So I had read that book before I started investing in the stock market, and then when I invested in the stock market, implementing the principles of that book just exponentially, you know, kicked that into gear, and to where I wasn't expecting to be debt free until my 40s, or you know, my 40s. But now here I am in my 30s, 100% debt free. So I really want you to consider learning how to invest on your own. Yes, if you have a 401k, that's awesome. But this is just my personal opinion. Again, I'm not a financial advisor. I am not giving financial advice. I'm just telling you what I did to speed up the process, because a lot of times I think when I was younger and I was like, oh, I have a 401k, and they're like, yeah. And I was like, what? I don't, like when I was 21, 22 years old, I'm like, they're like, yeah, you know, welcome to the job. Here's your, you know, you get a 401k. And then I remember asking my boss at the time, I was like, what's a 401k? And I don't even know if I asked my mom or dad. I don't even know. I just thought it was like, I don't even know. I just asked the boss at the time, and they're like, oh yeah, it's like, you know, off your retirement, and you can, like, you know, when you're older, you know, you can pay things off and like live off of it, and da 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 da. And I was like, oh, okay. So in my mind, I'm like, I'll just pay all my stuff off when I'm in my 60s, because I have a 401k, and I guess it's gonna like grow or something. Like, I had no idea. And then I just, as I, you know, went into my mid 20s, later 20s, early 30s, I was just like, I just don't like this. Like, even though I can like pay this off in my older years, when I have like a big 401k, like, I just want to be debt free now. And like, I know people that have figured it out, and I want to figure it out. So I really want to encourage you to figure it out. Download Robinhood, download Moo. Again, even if you don't want to really learn right now, you might as well download it and then get free stocks and just let it sit there, and then in a year sell that out and pay something off. You know what I mean? That could be the very stock that helps you pay off your car note or whatever. But I guarantee you, I think like for me, once I downloaded the app and just started playing with it and like following tutorials on YouTube, there's so many free, solid, good tutorials on how to use these apps. I just was like, I kind of want to like get into this. Like, I'm into this. So, you know, definitely make sure to do that as soon as you can. You can click the links down below if you want to check out Robinhood, if you want to check out Moo. Also, I'll have the book that I read that I told you about that helped me with my strategy. And thank you. I really appreciate it. Welcome to the, hey, you're debt free too. That's so good. Let me know, like, in the comments, put down, if you're watching this on the replay, what did you do to become debt free, or what are you doing now on your journey? Because there's just too much money to be made on the internet. Like, we have access to the world. There's something that you can sell. There's something that you Shopify store. There's investing accounts. Like, there's just so much money to be made on the internet. I'm just like, I can't. Like, I can't take it anymore. I have to figure this out. And it also came from like breaking out of my older millennial mindset too, which I think a lot of older millennials can fall into, is just kind of like that good old, like, well, I'm going to do it like my parents. And like, we just have more access to things. So we just got to take advantage of it. So I'll talk more about this topic in other videos. Let me know. I usually talk about health, fitness, mindfulness, like fitness, spirituality, God. Sometimes I talk about like the single season, all that stuff, but I'm kind of like, this is a part of that journey too. Like, when you're leveling up, like when you're embodying that, pursuing that next level, embodying that next level, that has to do with finances. And that's what I've done in my personal financial life. So if you guys want to know more detail, or like some of the stocks that I'm holding, let me know down in the comments. But I'm going to go ahead and go, and make sure to subscribe. Catch me on the next one. Bye.